have Dr. Blackjack Matthews come up now, and he's going to talk about rage and alcohol. And if you don't think this is serious, I had a fire team in front of me one time. They got off the plane from Iraq and immediately proceeded to a bar in San Juan Capistrano, which they proceeded to take back for the Marine Corps. They took down 9 sheriff's officers. I wasn't too happy about that, okay, because my sheriff's officers are my people under my command. So, you know, and this is just alcohol, and, you know, did some damage. So we had to deal with that. We didn't like dealing with that because we don't like to treat our heroes like that. So Dr. Blackjack Matthews will be with you right now.
Good morning. I'd like to add my little 2 cents to combat operational stress. General Mattis was a CG of the 1-Meth. I came down and talked to the Marines, and I talked to one unit. And I went back home to Oregon, and one of the majors in the 1st Marine Division called, who had been in Command and Staff College when I taught there, and he asked if he could put a sergeant on the phone. He did, and the sergeant broke down, started to cry. I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Sir, I can't quit drinking." I said, "How much you drinking?" And he told me. And I said, "Why are you drinking like that?" He said, "Sir, I can't get past this dream. All of my Marines died in a Humvee, and I'm the only guy that lived. I can't get past that." I said, "Put the major back on." The major I said, "I'm going to get a set of orders from Ben to San Diego tomorrow. I want to see him and his wife. It's okay with you." He said, "They'll be there for you at 1500. So I flew down from Oregon, and I'm not going to tell you what unit this Marine was in. I talked to him for maybe an hour. Really sad, sick. I don't know PTSD. I'm not qualified to talk about that stuff. But that was right in front of his face. I said, "I'm going to get you some help." Then I said, "Can I talk to your wife?" He said, "Sure." She broke my heart. Young girl, 22, came in, sat down, said, "Thank you for coming." I said, "What's going on?" She said, "You know, sir, he's the love of my life. I follow my brother out here from Ohio to join the Marines. He's the love of my life. He hasn't been near me for 3 months since he got off the plane from Iraq." So, I don't know PTSD. I've been diagnosed twice with it. But what I do know, it really touches a lot of individual people and individual families. We got both of them help, Captain Hammer and the folks with the PTSD crowd. But for some young NCOs and other folks, it's right up close and personal, and I understand. I've been through that too. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you about. I left Camp Lejeune in 1983. I spent 10 years down there with General Coleman. He and I were in the 2nd Marines together. And I was driving out of Camp Lejeune. I felt like I got out of jail. 10 years at Camp Lejeune, man, that's a tough haul. Many cruises, caxes, you know the routine. So, and I was divorced, and a lot of good things happened to me in Camp Lejeune. Probably the best, we took 1,100 Marines to Beirut back and never lost a single Marine. With 3-8. The worst thing that happened to me were 2 things. Number 1, I got divorced, and my wife and 3 little kids drove out of the parking lot. Alcohol cut a hole in the soul of my family. And 2, I became a real drunk in Camp Lejeune. I'm not going to lie to you. You know, alcoholic sounds like a wine and cheese guy to me. I was a drunk. Functioning drunk. Got up to I was going to teach tactics at Command and Staff College. I was required to be at a party. A Portuguese officer was in one of the conference groups, and we had made multiple landings with these guys in Mendenhall, Portugal, and he had a party for his conference group off base, and all they served is red Portuguese wine. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I can never drink wine, boy. I always get shit-faced on wine. I'm not sure why. My mother said I think I drank it too fast or something. I'm not sure. Stayed at this party, came out in March in 1984, and an ice storm had blown over Northern Virginia. I slipped on the ice, got my brand new 280Z that I bought from coming home from Beirut, and I drove from Quantico to Lake Ridge, Virginia. And should I have gotten a DUI? Yes. Did I? No. Lucky. Got off the interstate, went to a place called Charlie Brown's. Figured I need another drink. Walk in Charlie Brown's. Next thing you know, I came out of a blackout. Do you know what I mean by blackouts? Temporary induced amnesia from booze. Boom! I come out of this blackout, rolled up in a rug in front of the fireplace in my little townhome, pissed all over myself and all over the rug. Excuse me, but that's the way life was for me, ladies. Sorry. Got up, didn't have a clue how I got to my home, didn't have a clue what happened in Charlie Brown's, don't even remember being in Charlie Brown's. Somebody threw my keys inside the door. To this day, I don't know who that was. Went over and picked up my keys, looked in my garage, no car. Looked outside the entire block, no car. What happened? I surmised that my car is probably at Charlie Brown parking lot. I put on my PT gear and I ran down to Charlie Brown's 4 miles, 6 o'clock in the morning. There's my car, all covered with ice. I get in and defrosted it and drove home. I got to tell you something. I remember very clearly putting my head in my hands and feeling I was losing it. Feeling I was losing it. I was a sick guy. And I was at that terrible point in my life where, you know, I don't ever want another drink today. I don't ever want another drop to drink. But yet, I knew I could not go through the whole day without a drop. I thought I was going to die somehow. I was hoping that somebody would walk in the door and help me out, but they didn't. My fault. I don't know how I made it through that day. Now fast forward a month, I'm required to be at a faculty enrichment party. General Toomey, a 3-star Quantico, invited a senior executive from the State Department down to talk about something. And I had to be there, a coat and tie affair. So I went. Now I was 42 years old then. I lived like this. I used to never eat breakfast, never eat lunch. I ran 9 miles every day at noontime if I could, around this loop at Quantico. And I'd always go home and drink on an empty stomach. This day, I ran, went over to the officers' club on an empty stomach, had a couple of beers waiting for the party to start. Now they told us to go in the wall room. We're all sitting there, lieutenant colonels, every general on the base was there. And we're sitting in these tables of 5 and they're serving wine again. Boy, I said to myself, I ought to get out of here. Because drunks get drunk at the most inappropriate times, don't they? Huh? I spoke at the Marine Corps Ball up in Portland. Drunks get drunk at the most inappropriate times. I don't have a good enough reason to leave the party, so I stayed. Next thing you know, I come out of another blackout, strange bed, strange room, and a strange house. Whoa. I checked myself to see if I pissed the bed. I didn't. So you know what I said? Hell, I didn't get that drunk last night. You see, my yardstick at that time was whether I pissed the bed or not. And I didn't, so I tiptoed out of this guy's house, home, changed into Charlie's, and I went back and I taught a 3-hour class at Command and Staff College at Quantico to a bunch of majors. At the end of my 3-hour class, Colonel Jack Garcia, who saved my life, incidentally, was standing in the back of the auditorium at Ellis Hall, his hands on his hips. He said, "Come here." Yes, sir. He said, and I quote, "You get your ass down in my office and wait for me." Well, you know, lieutenant colonels don't talk to lieutenant colonels that way normally. And I sure as hell knew I wasn't going down there for a meritorious service medal. So I walked down to his office and he slammed the door, got behind his desk, and he looked at me and he says, "You got a hell of a drinking problem, Colonel. You know what you did last night?" Boy, I used to hate that question. you know what you did last night? I said, no, sir. I said, I can't remember. He didn't believe it. I said, well, sir, whatever I did, I'm sorry. He said, sorry? Sorry's not good enough for you. Your conduct was unbecoming a Marine officer. I got a good cause to board you out of the Marine Corps. I said, well, sir, what did I do? He said, well, General Toomey introduced this guy from the State Department, G.S. Magnificent, I call him. And he stood up, and apparently he was saying something about the Marines in Beirut. Apparently he said something about, we screwed it up. You know, that was a hot-button item in those days. We lost 241 sailors and Marines on a Sunday morning. I had a battalion in Beirut. I know exactly what happened in Beirut. I apparently, in a drunken stupor, stood up and told this guy from the State Department where he could stick his opinion. Using the F word. Blah, you get the drift of this? And I was told this was not a question and answer period either that I was participating in. And he said, you go to this guy from the State Department, a big apology. Yes, sir. He says, you owe General Toomey an apology. Yes, sir. Well, you know, my career is over. We clear on this one? I'm not ever going to recover from this. So, Garcia said to me, Garcia was not an enabler. And I think this is very key. You know, he didn't say, Jack, you've been a good Marine for 20 years. We're going to let you slide. No, no. He's holding me accountable for my actions. And in the process, Jack Garcia saved my life. He said, you got 1 week to tell me what you plan to do about your drinking. Yes, sir. So I went over to rehab center there in Quantico. They had a level 3 rehab, and I peeked in there. I said, shit, I can't go in here. Nothing but a bunch of drunks in there. You know, they look bad. So I didn't go. And the next thing I did, I called a base psychiatrist's office. I said, hey man, can I make an appointment to see a psychiatrist? She said, what do you want to see him for? I said, it's none of your business. She says, the earliest we can see you, Colonel, is 07:30 on Tuesday. I said, hell, I'll be there. Hung up the phone, felt a little good about making an appointment to see a psychiatrist. Went out and ran, stopped at the package store on the way home, got drunk Friday night, woke up Saturday, said, you know, I must be going crazy. Had a major incident in the club, called a base psychiatrist, got officially counseled, and I still got drunk. What the hell's going on with you? So, you know, I said, I'm going to go the whole day without a drink. And I did. It's like hanging on a pull-up bar the whole day. I made it, woke up Sunday and said, shit, I owe myself one. Hell, I went the whole day Saturday without one. So I went out and ran and got drunk. Went to work 9 April 1984. I was getting ready to PT. And the phone rang. It's the base psychiatrist's office. You, Lieutenant Colonel Matthews? I said, yes, ma'am. Good to see you, General. He says, she said, well, Dr. Funk wants to see you right away. I said, well, hell, I'm not ready to see him, not till tomorrow. She said, he wants to see you right now, so get over here. You know, the difference was if I belong in a rubber room, I better get over there today. So I go over there, I'm in Charlie's, 1300 on Monday, and boy, I am really nervous, hungover, and I got to tell you guys, very, very honestly, the ladies gave me a cup of coffee, and I couldn't hold it. I was going to DT's. And what's your social security number? Hell, I don't know. Fill out this paperwork. I really can't, ma'am. I'm sorry. Got the shakes too bad. Dr. Funk, Navy psychiatrist, sees me in the outer office, calls me in, and he says, hey, come in here. Sit down. Yes, sir. He says, what's the matter with you, Colonel? And you know, I got to tell you, I started to cry a little bit. I said, you know, Doc, I'm a drunk. I sure as hell can't stop drinking. Just don't know what to do about it. I didn't know that Dr. Funk was in AA when I told him that story. You know, the big guy works in strange ways upstairs. Funk listened to me for 3 hours. And he said, you know, Jack, he said, hell, you are a drunk. And I remember telling him, you know, it's okay for me to call myself one, Doc, but I don't appreciate you calling for one. He said, no, for you the fight's over. I said, what's that mean? He says, you're going to go to Bethesda tonight. Detox for a week, 6 weeks inpatient treatment, and we're going to get you well. I said, well, you know, Doc, that's not even remotely possible. I'm not married. I got to do my income tax. It's April, right? I got to do my laundry, blah, blah. You know all the things we tell a doctor if we don't go to the hospital for 7 weeks. He said, well, you know, Jack, this is not a request, it's an order. You want me to tell you to go to rehab, or you want General Toomey to tell you to go to rehab? I said, I'll take it for you, Doc. I don't want to see General Toomey on this issue. So I drive up to Bethesda Naval Hospital, and I'm there at 1800, you know, with all the other people who go to emergency rooms on those days, and sitting there in my Charlies, and a Navy nurse, lieutenant, remember, I'll never forget her. She walks out with a piece of paper in her hand. She says, is Lieutenant Colonel Matthews out here? And you know, I'm sitting there, and I raise my hand. Yes, man, that's in front of everybody. She says, the guy for alcoholism. I tiptoed over to her and said, you know, man, I thought this shit was anonymous. And she says, never mind that, Colonel. Get in here and change into your hospital stuff, and we've got to do a physical for you before we put you in the hospital. So I changed into my robe and blah, blah, blah. First thing she did, that lady put the cuff on me. She took my blood pressure, 162 over 116. Took it 3 times. She said, sir, I put you in the hospital for that. Alcoholism, high blood pressure is directly related to my alcoholism. No question about it. I was running, I wasn't overweight or anything else, but my blood pressure was over the top. Then she said, what's this pain you got here? I said, you know, ma'am, hell, I don't know what it is. I've had it for a couple of years. My liver. So she did all these blood tests on me, and she gave me a shot of vitamin B8 juice and buns. And then she said, you know, Colonel, before you put you upstairs, I have to decide whether you're suicidal or not. Suicidal? I'm not suicidal, ma'am. Never have been. She says, I'll determine that. So, she says, sit down. And yes, ma'am. I'm sitting next to across the table from this Navy nurse, and she says, what does it mean that a rolling stone gathers no moss? You tell me what you think that means. I looked at her and said, I don't have a goddamn clue what that means. She said, are you serious? I said, you know, man, I am really sorry. I can't get that one together tonight. Now, you don't go through Notre Dame being stupid. That's a good school. I was a sick guy. I had cancer of the soul. That's not my term, that's the guy who founded AA's term. I had cancer of the soul. Alcoholism is a spiritual disease. It's a disease of the soul. And I had it full blown. I was born Irish Catholic alcoholic from New York. Sounds like it's meant to be, doesn't it? You know, it's directly in all of my relatives were alcoholics. How did I get to be an alcoholic? You know, I was a high school All-American in basketball. Captain of Notre Dame basketball team. Not just being honest with you. 17 years old, you know, hell, I was a big deal as a kid. I looked like I really belonged on the outside. Inside, where your soul is, self-respect, self-assurance, and everything else, I never felt like I belonged in life. I was always a couple of clicks off, and you guys know what I mean by a couple of clicks. At 17, I couldn't ask a girl to dance. I didn't have the guts to walk over and ask a girl to dance. I went to a military high school. Because I couldn't handle if she said no. So you know what happened? I had a Carling's Black Label beer in Troy, New York. Had a couple of drinks. I go over and ask her to dance. She said, no, I really didn't give a shit anymore. You know, I'd ask someone else to dance. I tell you that because at 17 years old, I started drinking simply because I didn't have the guts to ask a girl to dance. You know, there's 3 stages of drinkers, generally speaking. Social drinkers, alcohol abusers, alcoholics. I went from being a social drinker at 17 to being an alcohol abuser in about 15 seconds. when that first beer hit my gut, something happened inside of me, started to take away the pain. I gotta get going here. So, you know, when I was a kid, my cousin walked through the door. He was a sergeant in the Marines. He was A.A. Vandergrift's driver in World War II. And boy, a little kid, I said, that's what I'm going to be. So when I get out of Notre Dame, I joined the Marine Corps right away. I was with 1-9, I got wounded September 67, then Valentine's Day 68, stepped on a booby trap. Left foot gets blown through the boot. I'm laying in an ice field, and the gunny gives me a shot of morphine in the thigh. I said to the gunny, isn't this stuff supposed to take away the pain? He says, I think so, sir. I said, well, give me another one. That one didn't work. He says, I can't. It may kill you. Wait for the helicopter. Took me to Charlie Min Da Nang that night. Don't remember much. Next night, I'm in the Philippines, Clark Air Force Base. Air Force First Lieutenant comes walking down the hospital ward. Very good-looking gal, as I recall. Big needle. She said, you Lieutenant Matthews? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, well, I have a prescribed medication for your pain. Roll over, please. Drop your pajamas. And she gave me a shot of Demerol right in the left bun. Have you guys ever had that? Man. Go floating through this hospital ward. Didn't give a shit about the foot, nothing. I said, hey man, what was that? She said, that's Demerol. I said, well, that shit is wonderful stuff. You know, I spent 18 months in Balboa, on and off. First 2 or 3 weeks, I could push a button every 4 hours down there in Balboa, 6 Charlie. Lieutenant Commander Gray, God love her, she's still around, she's long gone, but she'd come down, you need some pain medication, Lieutenant? Yes, ma'am. She'd give me that Demerol. I didn't miss a 4-hour period. I mean, I punched it all the time, and I didn't punch it because my foot hurt. I want to feel like that. What am I telling you? I could easily be a drug addict. Easily be a drug addict. My experience was cross-addicted. You know, they say in Alcoholics Anonymous, you may step across the imaginary line and become an alcoholic. I did it in Okinawa. Worked hard, played hard. Deployed, all that stuff in 1971. You know, I said to myself, I'm drinking too much, but I won't drink this way when I go home. Well, I got on a plane from Kadena and flew home to Jacksonville, North Carolina, and my whole world collapsed and changed. I got home and my wife, Nancy, first wife, sitting at the dinner table in Jacksonville, she said, you think you drink too much? I said, no. She says, I think you drink too much. I said, I think you're probably full of shit, Nancy. I don't drink any more than the rest of the guys. She says, no, I think you're an alcoholic. First time anybody ever used that word with me. I said, Nancy, I'm not an alcoholic. Come here. Took all the booze in the house. Furious. You talk about rage and anger. I was furious she called me an alcoholic. You know why? Because I was one. I didn't want her to say that. Poured all the booze down the toilet, flushed it. I'm never doing that again. You know how many times I had that? I ruined that girl's life. You know how many times I flushed the toilet with her? About 12. She finally left the parking lot and drove out of my life. Alcohol cut a hole in the soul of my family. I got 3 boys. They're all in their 40s. Alcohol cut a hole in the soul of my family. I got 2 boys, 44 and 43. Both been married in Florida. Both have little girls, 6 years old. And I've never wasn't invited to the weddings. I've never even met my granddaughters. Now you try that one on for size. Never met your granddaughter. What do they say down there in Florida? Do I have a grandfather? What kind of a guy is he? I wasn't there for those kids. And I flunked the test as the husband and the father. If you think that's pretty, not too severe, you can never reel it back in. I went out to Detroit to see my oldest boy who had 2 sons. And you know, my oldest grandson put his Little League uniform on. He knew I played baseball at Notre Dame. Wanted to have a catch with his grandfather. You talk about the important stuff in life. Have a catch with your kid. Take your granddaughter fishing. Just pick him up and give him a hug and tell him how much I love him. I didn't do any of that. So they left. Now I'm a major sitting in a 1-room BOQ room. I come home from work, I was a 3-2. Take a tall glass, fill it full of ice, put a little vodka in there, and a little tonic water and a lime, and have a drink after work. You know, later I didn't need any lime, didn't need tonic water. Hell, at the end of the day, I didn't need any glass. I just drink that vodka out of a bottle, hoping I'd pass out and go to sleep. Wake up after a fifth is gone. Wake up, look at that empty bottle and say, Jack, you gotta be shitting me. You can't live like this. Go to work, PT hard, work hard. When I get back to the BOQ, start the same process over again. Shot of vodka. Repeated behavior. Classic definition of alcoholism. Repeated behavior. I'm not going to get drunk tonight. You wind up drunk. So at 36 years old, living that way, I rendered myself physically impotent from drinking booze. Did you guys get that? What do I do now? Hell, I don't know what the hell to do. I don't know what to do. I got so tired of women saying you drink too much, I had to choose between the women and the bottle. What do you think I chose? The bottle. And I'm not gay. You clear on this? It was an easy choice for me. Some lady in the New River Oak Club wrote red lipstick. The ladies' room. Jack Matthews is a real asshole. You know, she's probably right. I don't know whoever did that, but she's probably right. I was waiting for the shoe to drop in my life. I went to the 2nd Marine Air Wing. I was the group grunt for the 2nd Marine Air Wing. Checked in on Friday. I got drunk at the hail and farewell, and Colonel Manzione calls me and he says, "Hey, you better watch yourself, Major." "Yes, sir." I said, "I apologize. I don't drink that way. I promise you, I'll be okay." So I went on the wagon when I was with the 2nd Marine Air Wing. I had the ability to go on the wagon in those days. I ran the Marine Corps Marathon in 1970. I traded my addiction for drinking for running, okay? Anytime I needed a drink, I'd go run. So I ran a DC Marathon in 78, 4 hours and 30 minutes. Between the 78 Marathon and 79 Marathon, I ran well over 2,500 miles. One day I was running from the BOQ at Cherry Point to the main gate and back at 0300. If I needed a drink, that's what I'd do. 2 MPs stopped me and said, "Hey sir, what are you doing out here? It's pitch dark. You don't have any reflecting gear on?" I said, "You know, I'm out here training, guys." They said, "What are you training for?" "Shit, I don't know." That's crazy, man. What, are you kidding me? Just training. Like Forrest Gump. Remember that movie? Just run down the road. I hadn't had a drink in 16 months. Running the Marine Corps Marathon in 1979. 3 November 1979. Running with 2 A6 pods. We're going to break 3:30. We come out of Haynes Point in 3 hours and 1 minute. Bad foot and all. Going across the 14th Street Bridge. This compulsion to drink came through me like a freight train. I said to these guys, "We got to pick it up." They said, "We're way ahead of schedule." I said, "Hell, I don't care about the schedule." I said, "I do." I said, "I just remember something. There's 2 Miller's beer trucks at the finish line." They said, "How do you know that?" I said, "Hell, I don't know. I must have made a mental note. We started this run. So let's pick it up. All these young Marines will drink all the beer. I won't get a chance." We finished the race. I went up to the beer truck. You know, you're sweaty and all that. "Give me one of those." "Free beer." "Give me another one of those." "Give me another one." You know what I said? I deserve this. I rate it. I'm going to get shit-faced right here in front of you with Jima Mani. And I did. I want to tell you guys something. Alcoholism is a progressive disease. Doesn't ever get any better. Doesn't ever get any better. You can go off, go on the wagon, blah, blah. It always gets worse. Always gets worse. Living example of that. If you keep going, it's either death, insanity, or jail. If you don't get some help. Well, now I'm in rehab. You with me? And check into rehab, and everybody's on a first-name basis. And I room with an Army general named Harry. All services, tri-service. Harry says to me, he says, you know, Jack, you can call me Harry because you and I are going to room together, but nobody else called me Harry in this rehab center. Hell, I'm senior to the CO of the hospital, he said. Okay, he said, I'm not participating in field days. And I'm not standing in inspections. You got me? You tell him all that, Jack, because that's the way it's going to be. Harry thinks I'm going to be his aide going through level 3 rehab. So, you know, 1300 every Thursday, I have a marble ceremony, and Gunny was a head drunk at the Bethesda Naval Hospital at the time. I had that job my last week, but now I'm just in treatment. Marine Gunny walks in Harry in my room. He says, come here, you two. You two get your PT gear on and go down by the smoke compartment and clean that shitter out. You got me? He walks out of his office, our room. Harry said, what did he say? I said, Harry, we gotta get our PT gear and go clean the shitter for Gunny. He said, I'm not cleaning the shitter. You kidding me? I'm a general. I said, that's up to you. He said, what are you gonna do? And Harry, I'm getting my PT gear on for the Gunny. I'm gonna go clean the shitter. He said, why? You don't have to do that. I said, I do. Marine Corps is giving me a break, and I'm going to make it. I just had an operation, but this is absolutely truth. Harry and I are cleaning his shitter, and he looks over at me with his PT gear on, and he says, you know, we've come a hell of a long way in our careers, haven't we? I was on my hands and knees. My career was over, my family was gone, and I was dying. I was dying. Navy psychiatrist, female psychiatrist, called me in the 3rd week of treatment. She did an interview with me, and she said, how many friends you got, Jack? I said, you know, ma'am, I don't have any friends. I got drinking buddies, if you will. But in a spirit of brutal honesty, ma'am, I think I lost the ability to be a friend. And I really mean that. She looks at me, she says, that's a pretty sad commentary for a 42-year-old officer. I said, well, then I had to go before a tribunal of 3 Navy doctors. Halfway point, 3 doctors sat me down and they said, the senior guy at the Bethesda Hospital says, let me tell you something, Matthews. Our diagnosis of you is alcoholic, chronic severe. You will be dead in 2 years, he says to me. Our experience is guys like you, not married, and the way you drink, you'll be dead in 2 years. Yes, sir. So do you guys believe in miracles? That was 1984. Last 9 April in Bend, Oregon, I went up and got my 25-year chip for being sober. Thank you, but I had really little to do with that. You got to give that to AA. I went to my first AA meeting, and I don't represent AA, okay, particularly with this camera going. Old Navy nurse, Ann Curry, was 38 years sober. I got out of the van, had a short haircut, my wristband on, and Ann Curry says, are you a Marine? I said, yes, ma'am. She says, I'm taking you to your first meeting. Okay? First meeting on Thursday night after we had that field day, they're giving out chips for measured amounts of sobriety. 30, 60, 90, 180, and blah, blah, blah. At the end of that, they said, but anybody got 24 hours sober and like to have a chip? And says to me, you got your chip, Jack? I don't have a chip. Sounds like bullshit to me, eh? She elbows me, go get your chip. You know, I almost saluted that lady. That's not my original chip. I gave my original one to a Marine Sergeant in Iwakuni, 1999. He still got it. It's a gunny. Talk to him. That may be one of the nicest things I've ever done in my life. You know, I went to 8 meetings a week. Let me tell you guys, leaders, this is a leadership class. If we send he or she to alcohol rehab and they don't go to meetings, you can take this to the bank. They will drink again. You can take it as gospel from Jack Matthews. And the first thing you should ask them, if you really care about them, are you going to meetings? You going to your meetings? No, sir. Go to your meetings. Well, I don't want to go to your meetings and shut up. Go there and sit down and just listen. Just go to meetings. I went to 9. I went there on a Saturday, my first Saturday morning meeting. Sandy B, a former Marine, said, this is about alcohol and rage. He said, you know, if something disturbs me, no matter what the cause, he's talking about the 10th step of AA. If something disturbs me, no matter what the cause, there's something wrong with me. Well, you know, everybody says, isn't there something about justifiable anger and everything else? Hey, leave that for the healthy people. Now, I'm socially dysfunctional, so they say in the Navy. Leave that healthy rage and all that stuff for other people, not guys like me. I said, I listened to Sandy B say that, you know, he has his whole life about being sober was getting undisturbed. Getting undisturbed. How do you get undisturbed? You change yourself. Change everything about you. You know what I did? A little practice. I roll up a piece of paper, and anywhere I worked or whatever, I'd throw it in the trash can. And if I missed it, it's a test of me. I go over and pick it up and put it in the trash can. Because I don't want to be some arrogant guy who thinks someone else ought to pick up after me. Put it in the trash can myself. If I'm wrong, what a great philosophy in life. If I'm wrong, I can go over and say to the cameraman, you know, sir, I'm really sorry. That was my fault, and I'm sorry. And it's over. It's over. And you get on with your life. Rage, PTSD, this stuff sits in front of you like this. You have to deal with it. You can either deal with it positively or negatively. You know, resentments will get you drunk quicker than anything else in this world. Get rid of them. I don't hang around slippery places. You know what a slippery place is? Anywhere they serve booze. I went up to Alaska with a couple of colonels. Jim McCloud. We're in this Great Alaskan Bush Company, going to have a couple of beers. They ordered beers, and I had a Diet Coke. You know, this honky-tonk place, kind of like a 6-shooting place. And I get up, I said, Colonel McCloud, I'm leaving. The lady who was serving me the Coke comes over and says, hey, you leave, you haven't even drank your Coke. I said, you know, man, I got to leave. She says, you don't like it here? I like it here. Shit, I love it here. I was born to be in places like this. But if I'm going to be sober, I can't be in here anymore. So I haven't been in a bar since. January 1985, I haven't been in a bar since. A lady made some rum cake back in Fredericksburg, Virginia, when I was teaching at Command Staff College as a civilian. You know, these Christmas parties, the poo-poos and the drinks and stuff. And she says, Jack, have some rum cake. It's really good. I said, no, thank you, ma'am. I don't care for any. She says, Jack, about 20 minutes later, have some rum cake. I don't care for any, man. Third time back, she says, Jack, you haven't eaten a rum cake. I made it. Have some cake. I looked at her and said, you think I'm starving? God damn it, lady. You'd eat the rum cake. Do I look like I'm starving? You eat it. Nobody's going to put me in that kind of position anymore. I drank because of peer pressure all the time in the Marine Corps. If you thought I couldn't hack it, I'd drink with you till I killed myself. Thank God I learned to live differently than that. I've been diagnosed twice with PTSD. You know, I don't know if I have it or not. Some people say I do. I was on the 1MEF Combat Operational Stress Team with the Navy captain over there. This is a tough subject. I did a bunch of seminars for a bunch of Marines. Combat seminars, just the NCOs and me. And the requirement was, you had to be in combat, you had to be an NCO, and you could not say anything when left this room. What stays here stays here. And my position was, if we talk among ourselves as Marines, we'll diffuse this stuff. You know, I don't feel good. Okay, why not? And the synergy of Marines sitting around talking like that, it's dynamic. And I believe it's a way to go. Not the way to go, a way to go. So, the end of my story is this. I was getting ready to retire in 1986. General Al Gray, you guys remember Gray? Gray gave me 3-8 when he was CG's 2nd Division. Then he's CGF and Meth Land. And he calls me on the phone. He says, hey, who's retiring you? I said, sir, nobody's retiring me. Who the hell would come? He says, well, I'm coming. I was one of Gray's boys, I'll own it. Got in the theater in September 1986. Place is packed. I get up on a stage like this, and his aide is behind this podium. And I'm standing here with General Gray. And the aide starts reading on a Legion of Merit Award. I said to General Gray, sir, please don't give me that. I don't deserve that, and I don't rate it. You know that's true. I don't deserve that, and I don't rate it. And Gray looked at me, and he says, I'll tell you what you deserve, and I'll tell you what you rate. Pinned it on me. But more importantly than that, you know what he said about it? He looked at me, he says, you know, Jack, I am really proud of you. I was 2 years old. I'm really proud of you. And you know the difference between some colonel going to throw you out of the Marine Corps for being a drunk? Having the future commandant pin a little medal on it? 8 AA meetings a week for 2 years, religiously. Went to my meetings, tried to change myself and change my life. Okay? Can I just tell you one sea story? Maybe they're all sea stories according to you guys, but anyway. You know, I had two students at Command Staff College, both Notre Dame graduates. So they write me up for this Father Corby Award for doing this for the Marines. Father Corby, you know, is a statue at Gettysburg, and he's given a benediction to the New York Irish Brigade. He was the chaplain for the New York Irish Brigade at Gettysburg. Later became president of Notre Dame. They give an award out now for Department of Defense guys. So when I retired, I'm sitting in Bend, Oregon, and in 2005, the phone rings, it's Notre Dame, and Marie answers, my wife. She says, don't answer that. They'll want more money. She said, I'm answering it. So she answered it. You, Marie Mathieu, Jack Mayes. She said, the guy on the other end of the phone said, will your husband accept the Father Corby Award? Marie says, didn't even ask me. She says, he'll be there. So we go to the Army-Navy game, 2005, South Bend, Indiana. We got to go out at halftime, Marie and me. And I'm out there nervous as hell because, you know, they're going to talk about me being a drunk and all this other stuff. I wasn't allowed to speak. And I said to Marie, I've never been more nervous in my life. She said, it's halftime, don't worry about it. No one will say a word. They won't even listen to this. You could have heard a pin drop in South Bend, Indiana at halftime. I almost wanted to collapse through the turf there at Notre Dame. They read out this award, to give you the award. I don't tell you that to be anything about Jack Matthews, but you know the guy who appreciated that the most was my 10-year-old grandson. First thing I did when I came back, I went over, picked him up, kissed him, and told him how much I loved him. I couldn't do that for his father, but I sure could do that for him. And you know what? He wants to go to Notre Dame, and he wants to be a Marine. God love him, and he will be. So that's my story. It's a really, really honor to come down here and talk to you guys. Don't take that lightly. Don't take that lightly, because it's an honor to talk to Marines and sailors. Please take care of yourselves, will you? Take care of your Marines. You know, Semper Fidelis is what it's really all about. I was down here 3 years ago talking to MLG, and a Marine sergeant came home from the war and bought a new motorcycle and killed himself on the highway. And you know what he blew when they took his BAC? A .32. Come on. You can't be doing that. You got to take care of each other and take care of yourselves. God love each and every one of you. I hope you got something from this. Thank you very much for having me.
You know, I want to tell you, life stories are important because sometimes they're guarded secrets for people's entire lives. But when you give the gift of sharing your life story, it means he gave it because he loves you. And he wants to see you prosper. So I think another round of applause is necessary. I want to say two quick things to wrap up this part of the morning. One, drinking is an intentional act. I don't know anybody who ever got drunk by accident. You have to pour it in the cup or take the bottle top off and stick it in your mouth and start swallowing. You don't get it by inhaling, and you don't get it by osmosis. You can, you know, fall in a vat and you're still not drunk until you ingest it. So we're talking about people making really bad decisions, and those decisions following them through life in various ways. I want to mention one other thing that we haven't really devoted a speech to, but is becoming a huge problem. In fact, I even heard it on the news yesterday, and that's prescription drug abuse. And I used to routinely see people in my courtroom, not Marines, but civilians, abusing Vicodin and Soma and other prescription drugs, to the point where they're stealing script and writing their own prescriptions. If you have young teenagers or young kids in your house and you have and you are given prescribed drugs, hide those things. Children are dying from drug addiction of prescribed drugs. What the kids do is they come and raid your medicine cabinet, and then they go to a party, they pour all the shit into one bowl, and people reach in and take drugs willy-nilly, usually with alcohol. And 13 years old, 12 years old, I have a friend who lost her 9-year-old. And so it's really important to keep those things, if you have them in the house, locked up. And when you're through with them, and you haven't finished the prescription, or you get rid of them because you don't want to take them to a pharmacy and turn them in so that the kids don't get them. We don't want any more dead kids.